you know.
All right. Are we live, Rabbi? Are we live? We are live. Don't talk too loud. You don't want to be everyone here. That would be a question for this. Well, actually, it's streaming. You probably want to know. Probably streaming. He has multiple streaming avenues. Report. Okay, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Temple Beth Shalom's annual meeting for 2023. If I don't know who you are, you don't know who I am. I'm Evan Dubrow, the president of the congregation. A little bit of background of myself. I've been a congregant for 16 years. I've served on the board for 13 years. And during that time, I've worked on a lot of great stuff to make our congregation a better place, a place of worship, community, and learning. So I think we've done a great job in those years. And many faces I see here, I've served with over the years, and it's great to see here today. Just a little quick business. If you haven't signed in, the group here, please sign in. This is a meeting. If you're online, whatever streaming medium you're on, if you could put into the comments or chat your name so we can get a recording of who's on there, we'd like to have that happen. So thank you. That would just only be used for our minutes and attendance of the meeting. First of all, I want to call the meeting to order. I think I needed to do that. Right, Mark? He's always good with Robert's Rules of Order, so thank you. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second to continue that? I have it right back here, Several. Thank you. I think the most important thing about any annual meeting is really reflecting back on what we've done and where we're going. And after great thought of what I was going to say tonight, I had a lot to say, but I don't want to be here and to have a long sermon. So the most important thing is I want to recognize people who make this place a great place, a house of worship, a gathering, and also a place to feel proud about in the community. Our name in New Albany in this area, we are known, and we're proud to have that. First recognition goes to the board members and all the volunteers of the congregation. There's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes of people who I always joke with when I was executive director of a temple that pay to do this work. We support the temple financially, emotionally, and with our own working hours. So everybody on the board who served with me, or even in the past years, and who will be serving coming forward, I want to thank you. I know how hard it is in the times to get away and make a difference in the congregation. And most important, our volunteers. Temple Beth Shalom does a great job of sort of herding volunteers and bringing them together to do great work. So I want to say thank you to that group. The next group is who makes this place really happen and run. It's our rabbis, it's our Gail with our musicians, Bobby and the staff of the temple, and not only that, the people who we hired to do work around here. You know, they work hard in themselves to make our place a place of safety and worship, our police. Again, if you ever see the police or security, always thank them. It's something I think is important to really show that we care for their presence here. So that's very important. But I'm very proud being president and going forth to have a staff and a clergy that really makes this place special. It's their hard work, it's their true love, and most important that people tell me all the time is how friendly and open our rabbis and staff and clergy are. And I think that goes back to the days of our founders of looking out the window and wanting what we had at the temple. And in memory of many people who were before myself, that was their goal 45 years ago, was to make this a congregation of everybody and make it a place where we feel good to be here and happy to walk in the doors. And then lastly, I always want to thank the people who support this temple financially. It's our whole congregation. This is done on all voluntary donations, and your dues are donations. We don't sell a product. We support a mission and vision for people to be part of this community, Jewish and non-Jewish. So all the people out there who give in whatever amount it is, it's important for what we do to support the services that we do for our own members and people outside in the community. So thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being online. And as I leave this welcoming, we should all be very proud. And the people before us should be proud of what we're doing, and we're going to continue the great work of Temple Beth Shalom. Rabbi?
I should just say we're really thankful for you, Evan, for the love and care that you put in. I think Bobby and I have had maybe 50 to 80 hours of meetings with you over, not really, but I mean a lot of time over the years, yeah. A lot of time and heart is contributed by you and your family also, and we're really, really grateful for that. So I want to say hello, everyone, and hope everyone's doing well. We have a blessing for communal leadership. It goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'atzok b'tzorkei tzibur, which means, blessed are you, eternal our God, guide for life, who has commanded us to occupy ourselves with the needs of the community. And we can say to that, amen. I've got a brief report for this evening. I wanted to kind of talk in three quick categories: one about services, and then high holiday services, and special holiday services and Shabbat services, and talk about our adult education stuff, and then talk briefly about our life cycle stuff in the last year, so everyone can enjoy a look back. So you can look at the screen if you want the numbers there. And I thought if it's okay with everyone, we just kind of go through this and get a sense of how we're looking. We're very excited to have record attendance for the high holidays this year in 5783. As you may remember, we had a combination of indoor and outdoor services. We do plan on doing that again this coming year. In fact, we're fundraising for that right now. So if you enjoyed that, please help us pay to have the sound and visuals and all that fun stuff. Fair enough. Okay. That's all I'll say about that. We had the kind of traditional services, the choir, and the more solemn services, although they were musical and beautiful. Also, here in the main sanctuary, and then outside we did the Erev services in the evening and the Shir Shirim services in the afternoon. We also had family services there. We've tried to do an enhancement of music in all the services this year, adding new musicians to both the traditional service and the Shir Shirim service. And just to mention also the ever-important Kiddush luncheon. We had to figure out how to do that and ended up doing kind of 2 servings of the Kiddush luncheon, and that worked out nicely. It was a little sad to not have the whole community together and have that big present feeling, but it worked, and everyone got to do a little nosh either before or after the service that they went to. So that is kind of a recap of the high holidays. What we're looking at for 5784 is a very similar setup because it worked, and I think a lot of people really enjoy being outside, and for some people they'd rather be inside. So this way, you can pick what works best for you, and we'll have services to match. Just kind of a brief view of Erev Shabbat services. Attendance has slowly grown over the last year, but really more steadily since February. Since for some reason something clicked over in the middle of February, and other than a couple of small services here and there, we've increasingly had better and better numbers. And I don't know if that's because people are feeling more comfortable to go out to services, or if our services are just getting better and better. I don't think that's it. But we have tried to add more diverse readings. One of the missions that we had received was to stop doing the same readings all the time. During COVID, we had slides made, so we were just kind of hitting the same buttons over and over again. So we've really changed that stuff up. We have continued to kind of use technology the best we can, using the screens that we have here. Sometimes for movies and stuff like that, but always for having the lyrics or the words for the prayers in there. And then I want to mention that we've also continued streaming our services, although the streaming numbers are significantly lower than they were during COVID. On an average, if you take the three, this is Karen to answer your question from before, if you take the three platforms where we are on our website, on YouTube and Facebook, and combine them together, we usually have about 20 or so people who are watching from home. So it's not what it used to be, but we also have a lot of people in the building, and that seems to be great too. So hopefully people are going to find us wherever they are. And then just a couple of highlights from holiday services that aren't the high holidays. If you were here for our Hanukkah service and party this year, it felt like a return to the old days. As did Purim. We held it on a Saturday evening this past March, and combined it with a carnival, and that seemed to work really nicely. And then the Passover Seder, we had the most people we've ever had, even before COVID, with 190 participants, although a few people dropped off at the last minute because there was a scary storm that came through as we were about to start. I want to mention that we decided to do Shavuot just a few weeks ago on Friday night rather than on the actual Erev Shavuot, which is on Thursday night, which is slightly less traditional, but I think because of that, we had a really nice, even on Memorial Day, had a really nice turnout and felt like a community gathering, and that was great. And on the recommendation of the Religious Practices Committee Chair, Connie Hirsch, who is right there, along with the committee, we've had a couple of meetings, and these are things that we are trying to do in the coming year. You may know that right now we're experimenting with 6 o'clock p.m. services and service times. This is not a permanent switch. We're trying to get everybody's feedback to see if this could be a permanent thing or not. We are experimenting with Shabbat walking programs where we'll do a very, very short, like a 10-minute blessing outside on the driveway, and then we're going to walk this 1.5-mile loop, or maybe less if that's too much for people. We'll kind of get a sense of that on Saturday. And another idea that the committee had was to bring in more outside speakers, so we're going to start putting that together to happen after the high holidays. Office staff and Gail are going to, again, be reaching out to folks who have yard sites, which is just a nice way to generate enthusiasm from people to be here. We're doing outdoor services monthly in June, July, and August. And one fun idea they had was to try and publicize the musicians ahead of time, because everyone wants to be at a service where Arkady is going to be there. And sometimes even we don't know until 6:28 if he's going to be here or not. So for us to try and get a better handle on that. So that's all that I want to say about services. I'm happy to take questions in a few moments. I just want to say a really important bit about adult education, because this was our big goal for this past year. If you were at the annual meeting last year, I debuted that there. The idea was that we wanted our congregation not just to be a congregation that serves families with young kids, but also for folks who are looking for some more serious Jewish learning. And so we had a bunch of really cool programs this year. Krista Dalton did a defense against the dark arts magic in Judaism class that lasted a couple classes and had 21 participants on a Sunday morning. Professor Richard Prostowski, who you may know also as a Temple member, had a great topics and Holocaust class. That was over 4 sessions. Rabbi Apothekar taught about the Quran and the Torah side by side and how they work with each other. We are in the process of rebranding Lunch and Learn. I have one of the mavens, maybe 2 of the mavens of Lunch and Learn are here, and that has become Juicy Jewish Topics, and yeah, spelled Jewcy. And thanks to Laurel and to Tirza for really spearheading that. And our big focus this year has been on our Melton classes, taught by Rabbi Lynette and me. We had 51 registrations. Some people did 2 classes, but for Melton's sake, it counts as 51 registrations for these 4 classes. It was so much better than we thought it would be as far as attendance, because everyone who signed up had to pay to be a part of it. Thanks to a grant from Hilda Glazer and David Stein, we were able to lower the cost for our members to be $100 rather than $180 as Melton charges. But it was really great. And we're going to do the same format next year where we do 2 classes, a daytime and an evening class in the fall, a daytime and an evening class in the spring. And then I think we may also add a Sunday morning, like a parenting style class taught by Rabbi Leanne Kopans, who teaches our Sunday school for adults. So it was really exciting. It was great. It was great to have an idea and have amazing staff to make it all come off, and to have volunteers in the congregation to teach. And if you know anyone who would like to teach a class or has anything that they specialize in, we'd love to do more of that this coming year. And last but not least, and then I will stop talking, some people like to see the numbers of the baby namings and the B'nai Mitzvah. So we had nine baby naming ceremonies, or brisses, or simchat bats. We had 14 B'nai Mitzvah, including an adult bar mitzvah last weekend from Rick Luckton, which was really cool. 11 weddings, including Rabbi Lynette Goldman's wedding, and she's getting back from her honeymoon tomorrow. Very exciting. Yeah, right. And we had 8 funerals and a bunch of shivas and countless hospital visits as well. And everything is really starting to feel like it is approaching the pre-COVID era, and it's feeling weirdly normal. And yeah, right, knock on something. But we are trying to improve. I know you said we don't have a product, but we're trying to improve the whole temple experience, and we never want to rest on our laurels. We know that we can always do better, that we can make services more effective and more connective. So we're just going to keep plugging away, and yeah. So that's my report. Anybody have questions or comments? Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a great question. So we taught right here in the library, yes, and it's also online. So people could do it from Zoom, or they could do it in person. In the library, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I meant on our campus. No, this is different than the Melton Center at OSU. Same Melton, different program. The Melton family has funded a lot of different things, and so this is the Melton Mini Center, where congregations or communities can pair with them. Basically, they provide us the curriculum, we provide the teachers and the space and the students, we pay them a fee, and then they kick back some of that to us if we had more than 30 learners, which we almost had double that, and it worked out really nicely. So it's all in-house stuff. We did have one member who I know of who wasn't from TBS who just saw it and joined, but it was, other than that, it was all of our people. That's a great question. Any other questions? Well, I'll stop talking and say thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Take a breath after reading all those, huh? It's great. I think the goal of most house of worships or most organizations is to engage. And any way that our programs and services and everything we do is to engage people to be Jewish and to live Jewish lives. And if you aren't Jewish, to feel comfortable to be here. I think that's very important. Another aspect of our temple is we accept everybody, and that's important too. I believe we have Bobby's report, the executive director report, and it's actually ironic because I was thinking today a little bit about my past, as I was an executive director of 2 synagogues for over a decade, from a smaller congregation like this one to one of the largest in the United States that I ran. And this will be the first time I actually sat here as president. I always used to have to do the reports. So, Bobby, your turn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And those of you at home, Benji, I just swipe? This time. Okay, thank you. At the risk of sounding repetitious, nothing at TBS happens without the team being involved. Me, staff, Evan, clergy, it all happens together and organically. And, I feel, 3 years in now, really honored to be a part of this group and to be a part of the future of TBS. So thank you very much, all of you. This year, in many ways, feels like 2022-23 feels like a bridge year upon reflection. A year in which we did a lot of thinking about where we are as an organization post-COVID and where do we want to be. And I am really excited about what's on the horizon for fiscal year 24 and beyond, because I feel like coming into this upcoming year, it's the most excited that I have been as the executive director of TBS, because I think we're on the cusp of some really great things. Highlights and overview for fiscal year 23. Everyone likes to know about where we are from a membership standpoint. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So we're currently at 430 households, and for the past 2 years, including this current year, we basically have been flat. We pulled in around 630,000 in dues last year. That's what we're projecting this year, and we'll get more into the financial situation later. But for the past 2 years, we've been hovering in the low 430s. And we're +6 for the year, which is great. I'd rather be maintaining than going backwards. And I'm cautiously optimistic that that number will change over the course of fiscal year 24. And it'd be great to get into the +10 range or the double digits and really start to get some growth going. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is by more heavily investing in programming and engagement for fiscal year 24. More details to come over the course of the next couple of weeks. So some of the highlights aren't particularly exciting. They're more back office and operational, but they were really important for us this year. We secured employee retention credit funds that really provided us with financial flexibility, and again, we'll chat more about that in a little bit. And we completed 2 significant database transitions, one of which hopefully many of you are experiencing in real time right now. One of those transitions was ShowCloud, and we're unlocking more and more of its capability, and we're going to be embarking upon the first paperless membership renewal process that we've probably have ever had. I promise you it's not as scary as it sounds. There will be other ways beyond logging into ShowCloud to renew your membership for TBS for next year. The other database transition was shifting to QuickBooks Online, which really helped us unlock better understanding of our financial situation. And Brady Ware, who I guess is a local accounting firm, really held our hands through this process. And for the past year, we have been working with and analyzing numbers that we trust, and that hasn't been the case since I've been executive director. So we feel really, really good about the clarity that we have around our financial situation. Evan will get more into the philosophy of the strategy work in a little bit, but I wanted to just discuss about some of the things that I have been doing to make sure that we are continuing to advance the future of TBS. And really high level, the board has been organized itself across a couple of strategy silos, and I've been involved with a handful of them. The building is top of mind for me and for many people because we're in a 25-year-old building, and many aspects of the building, from mechanical to HVAC, are totally original, and it's high time that we start thinking about what comes next for our building and our plant here at TBS. So the longer-term focus is we've revisited the 2011 Rogers Craniac facilities analysis. Some of that, a couple of people in this room were heavily involved in that process, but we're returning to that to address lingering questions and maybe things that weren't resolved a decade ago, and using that as a launching point for a renewed analysis of the building. And that is across a whole variety of fronts. Rick has been very helpful in helping us figure out what the next steps could be from an HVAC standpoint, and there are aesthetic improvements as well. Short-term focus is, with the support of donors, we are constantly identifying building improvements that we can make right now. We are keenly aware that the social hall floor is not in great shape. And it's my hope, thanks to the generosity of a couple of donors, that we will have a new social hall floor by the High Holy Days. So that will be really exciting, and just like the new paint job in the social hall really breathed some new life into that space, I think we're going to take it to the next step with brand new flooring. So more to come there. The fundraising strategy silo, which has been Julie Alpert, as VP of Fundraising, has been my partner in crime for a couple of years now, and it's always a pleasure to work with her. But we are analyzing and trying to figure out the next steps for developing a formal gift acceptance and recognition framework, similar to what other professional nonprofits have. It's time for us to really professionalize our philosophy and understanding of fundraising and philanthropy at TBS, so we can have more informed conversations with donors and help them understand what their generosity will mean. And we're also doing a foundation fund review, analyzing all of the funds that the Jewish Foundation holds for us, and similarly to providing guide rails, we want to start to establish fund limits. What does it mean to set up a fund in support of TBS? So again, we can share that information during donor conversations. And lastly, membership. Jonathan Schaefer and Mindy Yagan have been extremely helpful with this conversation, and it involves analyzing how we conceptualize and talk about membership at TBS. Because to a certain extent, we are still operating in a very antiquated framework of membership where you pay dues, you get High Holy Day tickets. That's not how it works anymore, thanks to COVID. So in 2023, what does it mean to be a member of TBS? What are the benefits of membership at TBS, which is critically important to communicating that to my demographic who might not see the need to join a temple. So this is really a great opportunity for us to look at how other synagogues are conceptualizing membership and talking about it, and what does their marketing look like. So for renewal 24-25, we can have some refreshed language in place and a new philosophy behind why membership at TBS is so important. Questions, comments? Neil, please. Either by the end of the month, either June 23rd or 30th, that's what I'm pegging. So towards the latter half of June. Thank you. Any? Okay. Steve.
Hold on 1 second. So, you're on the record. Been on the record before.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. So, having done membership for a number of years, but retiring about 9 years ago, but while we were not in Temple, every night, every Friday, but we were here frequently, and my antenna was up, and I always knew when a new person walked in, and I was there to greet them, and there was more than one person over the years who said, there was one temple or synagogue in the area who said, you know, I was a member here for X years, and nobody ever approached me. Here, I was approached frequently. I think you will agree with me on that. And I have not seen, I know Bobby's here. I know Bobby gives the message every week. I'm surprised by that. I think there should be board members doing that. I think it's the board members who are here. I sense that some of the new board members are not here. Maybe they're Zooming, but I'm disappointed if that's the case. I hope we get to have the new board members introduce themselves. But I think, to me, I was not a fan of marketing, okay? It was one-on-one, and I know times are different, but it was very effective as we grew the congregation over the years from 80 or 90 members, which is when I started doing this, maybe even fewer, to, I think by the time I stopped, we had about 340, 350 members. So this is really a message to the board. They need to be here. I don't know what marketing strategy that they developed, but to me, the most important thing is recognizing somebody who walks into the door, know that the rabbi, Apotheka Benji, was really helpful to me at times. I haven't been aggressive with you. I don't do that anymore. But, the new faces were recognized, and to me, that's the most important thing that we can do. And we aggressively got after their name as soon as they walked in.
Well, Steve, as president of the congregation, I think I have to address that because I am the leader of the board. And I will take accountability for that, personally. Yes?
I've been a member since June 29.
The past year?
I know you. I don't know anybody else. Well, I know you since then. I grew up, yes. But I grew up where synagogue officers, trustees, board members always came Friday night services or Saturday. They just didn't come to the social events. I don't see any of you here.
Well,
You don't have a badge that says so-and-so. It would be nice if you showed up.
I will continue on that I will take responsibility for that. I think what people don't realize is we went 2 years of a thing that disrupted everything. We took over a board. I took over a board during COVID. People were there. We had different responsible people came. We had name badges, which is probably a good idea. But I think our fundamental thing, Steve, is I think we're still that same congregation. I don't think people walk in here don't have people, congregants, come up to them and welcome them. I think it's quite the contrary, that everybody even doesn't have to be a board member. It should be a congregant. That's the responsibility of the congregation, is to welcome people. It's also the board, too, to come here and represent and be leaders and show that I agree with you. So noted, so noted. Times have changed, people's responsibilities and things have done it. So when you said in your time, my father used to say that, and his father used to say that, and his father would say that. I think we need to find a happy medium. I think there's a way that we can encourage board members and others to come. However, if you come to events, I think there's quite a few board members that are at the events. If you came to our past gala, I think they're all there at the past gala. I wouldn't say never, but my thing again is, it is noted. I will take responsibility and accountability for that, and we will discuss it at our board meeting with new people coming through. We have sent around where it's Saturday morning, there's usually a board member here to greet. And I know that because I've seen the thing fill up. I've seen the Zoom myself. So I'm not here to discuss whose responsibility. As president, You can't force people to do stuff. I have them working on a lot of stuff within the congregation that's going to make a big difference too. So they have to pick their times within their own lives and their own balance and things there. So I'm here to hear what you said. I will have a discussion in the board meeting, our next board meeting regarding that. I will have a discussion with the rabbis, and we will try to do better. No. Well, let me answer that. Yeah, we've been Zooming way before COVID. Just our numbers went up. We went to Facebook, but we've been Rabbi Benji is way ahead of congregations. We were one of the first to stream. We're one of the first now to have a professional streaming equipment and to do all that. So Zoom and what we have, and things have changed, and people are trying to find their ways. One thing that I will say is, stepping back and looking, our congregation, we have a lot of people who volunteer. We have a lot of people, our giving's higher than ever. We have people who hear about how welcoming we are. We have adult education programs that people are attending. We have religious school numbers that are coming up. We have people rebounding. For a couple officers in that, I hear what you're saying, but in the big picture, I want to say thank you to all the people for their time and support that they come. And presence is important, Steve. I agree with you. I think it's very important for leadership and what we've done, but we've coming out of something different that we've never had to have a challenge within a congregation or even our country. And I want to say one thing is, not only am I proud of this congregation, I'm happy, and I think we did one heck of a job keeping engagement throughout those times and continue on. And as president of this congregation, that is a priority of mine, to do that. So noted. Put it in the minutes, please. We will discuss it at the next meeting. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. So regarding the nominating committee, that is, oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipped there, but thank you. That's what executive directors do. They make us shine. The recognition of retiring board members and officers. Let me pull out my... First thing, and I said it a little earlier, is the commitment to board or any boards. I don't know if you've ever read a book called Bowling Alone. Maybe you have, but it was probably 10 years ago, but it was about a bowling leagues and how people now are bowling alone or not into communities and being part of stuff. And one thing I think has been very hard with any nonprofit or even organizations that I sit on other boards, it's getting people to participate, people to step up, people to serve. The time has become very difficult. So the members of our temple, I want to say thank you, board members that have been there. The ones who have agreed to serve and carry on the work of the board. Is something, as I always joked on Bobby's side when I held his position, is, again, we pay to do this. We pay to support this. And we do it with our hearts, mainly, because that's the time to commit in the challenges that our board has gone through, especially with Mindy and Michael and me coming out of the COVID and people's expectations. Their time is valuable in life, and I want to thank them for making it a priority to be board members. So for the ones who are leaving, do I have the list, Bobby? I know there's 2 present that I see. One, is there where are they at? Is there a list? Okay, I'll go by here. There's, first is Amber Block. Hi, Amber, if you're on there. Amber Block has served, I think, 2 terms as president or as board of trustees. Amber, especially on the outside world in the temple, has been HR work, so she spent a lot of time, and I've been worked with and served with Amber, and she's done a wonderful job, and I wish she would serve one more year, but she's got a busy life on the outside and has given a lot to this congregation, so thank you, Amber. Michelle is not here, but I will have to say, Marvin, you got some work to get up to, because she's probably, out of all the boards I've ever served on in 30 years of my life, she's probably the best note taker that I've ever seen a minute taker. And her fingers, and she does it real time. She doesn't go back, she just, and I look at it and I'm like, and it's probably the first time in 25 years of being part of a temple that I don't ever have seen anybody correcting her minutes. Not even David Neubauer looking for something. So Michelle, thank you for your time. You're wonderful. I'm going to miss you. Marvin, you got a lot of work ahead of you to live up to her standards, but thank you, Michelle, very much. Robin, come on down. Where's the... Oh, there it is. Okay. Robin. Robin is one of those board members that if you call her up, she'll hesitate at first probably to answer the phone, but she answers. Or the email takes a couple days to make her think about it, but she'll respond and always say yes. And Robin has been very involved with our social programming at the temple, mainly in the galas that have been outstanding the last 2 years coming out. So all the little things and the help that you did this year with me and special tasks, I hope you come back to the board someday because they could really use you on that part. And if you can open that up, I just want to maybe show what you have there. These also are donated by a congregant to make this happen for us. Again, that is those little special things that people can do to recognize members of the board. And that person wanted to say anonymous, so thank you. If you're watching, you know who you are on there. So thank you, Robin, for all you've done.
Thank you.
Not only being a board member, but being a wonderful congregant of TBS. Connie, come on down. Connie, well, I think Connie and I served for probably the first time I was on the board. Does that seem about right, Connie? Yeah, at least. And I always enjoyed Connie and her comments and really balancing out what we were thinking. And I think in 10 years we've done a great job, the board and yourself and everybody, and being your specialty of the Rabbinic Religious Practices Committee and working with not only Rabbi Apotheker when he was here as our senior rabbi to working with Rabbi Benji. You bring a lot of wisdom and a lot of heart and music too, correct? Yes. So all your energy and your time and support of the temple has been really appreciated. We're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you for what you've done. So same plaque with her on that, but thank you very much. So I think those are the 4 board members coming off, and I'm going to lead this to the nominating committee. I don't see Mindy or David. Are you doing that, or does that? Okay.
So we have a really great slate for next year. We had to, due to people rolling off and being term limited, we had some more work to do this year than we had to do last spring. But I am pleased to really highlight some of the additions to the 2023-24 board slate. Leah Miller will become our VP of Programming, and you want to talk about someone who is engagement focused and has a fantastic personality who would be wonderful on a Friday night, it's Leah. She's a great ambassador for TBS. And Marvin, in Michelle's absence, will become our new secretary. Thank you so much for stepping up, Marvin. For our trustees, Vicki Arco will be joining us next year, and Vicki is a New Albany Public Schools teacher, and she's going to be a great link between the religious school conversations and the board. So we're really excited to have her on, and she's just very active and is really a part of things like First Friday because she has a young family. So we're really excited to have Vicki on board. Meredith Levine. For those of you who have been with TBS for a while, Meredith is a legacy TBS member. Her mom was Debbie Levine. And Meredith has she loves Jewish life, and she's very enthusiastic and She has a bit of a fundraising skill set from a professional standpoint, so she'll be another great addition. And last but not least, volunteer extraordinaire, Paul Roth, for second term of service, third, what is it at this point? So, second, okay. So all of the great work we've done this year is really going to be, I think, we're going to hit the ground running next year with this great new slate of board members. And, you know, speaking on behalf of Rabbi Benji and Evan, we're really excited to work with this group for the upcoming year.
Thank you, Bobby. With that said, can I have a motion for the Board of Trustees? Can I have a second? All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, congratulations to the new board. Thank you. Past board, thank you. And it's going to be a priority to keep the ship a-sailing in the positive directions towards that bright sunlight or out the window. So great. We'll move that on there. The next thing is the Finance Committee. Before we start with that, Neela is going to be doing that, and Neela is our treasurer, and Josh Zeidman, who is not here tonight, is our VP of Finance. And whew, all I can say is great work. Josh, if you're watching on vacation, great work. The hours that this group has put in the last 2 years, I'm not exaggerating, is almost a slight part-time job. There was a lot of work to do, nothing alarming, but a lot of work to bring us to the next level. And one thing that had a lot of conversations, may he rest in peace, with Mr. Feibel over the years, and his thing was, I hope the congregation keeps maturing in a great way. And everything that we're talking about and a lot of the initiatives that I'm bringing forth as president of this congregation is we're a maturing congregation, and with maturing, there's certain responsibilities that we need to be shepherding. And one of the most important things as the leaders of the congregation, and especially financially, is being a great shepherd of the finances of the temple. And that means bringing in software to keep us up to date, hire accounting firms that understand nonprofit or house of worship, and putting standard accounting practices, and all the way to having reviews by outside parties to make sure that our financial responsibilities are held to the highest standard at our temple. And they've been doing that. We hit some challenging times during COVID, and the report will be there. But this group, and I know because I attend on Zoom meetings, because a lot of people work all over the country, really, that join this, to bring us to where we are today. And there were some challenging conversations. There had to be a lot of new thinking, and they did it. So Neela, come on up, be proud of the work that you did, and let's share to the congregation what we have for them moving forward. Bobby, you can stand here too, please, because I was going to end it with that, but really Bobby needs a great hand of applause in what he's done, because it's hard work. It's hard work herding cats, juggling plates, juggling this, and doing financial stuff when you're learning how to do financial stuff. With the work of Josh and Neela and others, they've taught you a lot, and he's been a sponge. And working with Brady Ware, he's been a sponge. So the maturity of you have done great, so thank you, Bobby.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Neela Lieberman, and I have been a congregant member since 2015. I joined the board at that time, I joined the Finance Committee at that time, and I've been learning ever since, and I then became a board member a few years later and was the secretary, and now the treasurer for the past 2 years. So we've been learning and growing together, and it certainly has been some challenging times. Are we going to put the budget up there? Okay. Okay. So really, I just want to present to you, I think everybody has a copy of the budget. This is the proposed budget for 2023-2024. We've also put out what our budget was for 2022, 2023, and that fiscal year is ending at the end of this month. So this is a projection of where we will be at the end of this month. And I just want to give an overview of the past fiscal year. So you're going to see that the net income is negative, $120,000. And that's not an ideal position to be in. However, we've implemented new processes to approve expenses of $250 or more. So if it's a brand new expense, we're going to bring it to the Finance Committee. We're going to have a conversation about it, and we're going to decide whether we approve to move forward on that. And if not, then we take that back and we say this is an opportunity to fundraise around that. We recently had a conversation around a potential expense, and it was good dialogue. And I think we decided, we're not going to move forward on that right now. So it's already in process. For existing expenses that are increased $250 or more, we will have the same conversation about that. So that's one of the processes that we've put into place to just control expenses in just a rising environment where it just costs more to do business. One of the other things that we're really working towards is, we've really had to rebuild our religious school. Pre-COVID, we had an income from religious school of about $170,000. This year, we struggled to hit that religious school income. We know those numbers are climbing back, but within the board, we're actually evaluating and assessing how can we work to make our religious school better, and post-COVID, how can we bring back students, how can we engage students, and what does that look like going forward? So we're working on that. And so for our proposed budget for 23-24, we've brought that number down, and we know that this is probably more realistic, at least for the next couple years. We did set aside an ambitious goal for ourselves of $100,000 for fundraising. Remember being part of that conversation last budget year. We did a great job. $82,500. Julie, Bobby, great work with your entire team on the fundraising. The two big events that raise money for fundraising are the High Holiday Appeal, the Holy Day Appeal, and the Spring Gala. And combined, just those two events brought in, right now, $62,000, and hopefully some more still coming in from the Spring Gala. We were fortunate to receive a larger Jewish Columbus grant this year, so that shows and is reflected in the income numbers. We actually saw a decrease in that grant for 2022 for religious school, and we saw a decrease in that from the year before, and that's up quite a bit this year, so that really helped to offset some of the lost income. Additional family contributions have helped cover religious school and program expenses, and we have not raised dues or facility upkeep fees for a number of years. So we are going to increase dues this year, really not by a lot, but it'll make a little bit of an impact. So it's going to increase $100 for standard dues for each household. So that'll lift us another $10,000 in income. Again, it's been a number of years since we've had to do that, and we just feel really to help offset the rising cost of doing business that this is, the position that makes the most sense. And then again, just ways to cut cost. One of the things that Bobby talked about was the Shul Cloud. So within Shul Cloud, you can go in, you can view your membership dues, you can pay online, and then on there you can also opt in for an electronic newsletter as well. Or today, I think, in an email, it came out that you can just click on the link and enroll in electronic newsletters, and that alone will save probably $6,000 or more dollars. So again, just finding smarter ways to do business as we move forward. And with all that being said, I just really want to thank Bobby for all of his hard work and the efforts he put forth through the application process for the employee retention funds. We have received enough funding from the Employee Retention Credit grant that we received that covers our negative number for last year and allows us to transition back to a budget that no longer relies on government funding. The last 3 years, we've relied on the PPP funding and now this employee retention credit. So we're moving forward. We're very excited and looking forward to the new fiscal year. And we want to just say thank you to David Neubauer for working closely with Bobby to negotiate new utilities contracts that will save us several thousands of dollars. And a special thanks to David Siegel and Michael Rothstein for their time and work on the Budget Committee. I'll take any questions.
Why did GS&A go way down from what we have this year? Went from 120,000 projected to 72,000 budget?
So Neil's question is GSA. Obviously, we're projected to spend for this fiscal year 120,000, and we are proposing 72,000 for next year. Our philosophy with this budget is to try and put on paper as conservative of a budget as possible and do our damnedest to stick to that. 72,000 was pre-COVID budget number, and through many of the means that Neil mentioned, we're going to try and come as close as we possibly can to that number, and we might find, since this is an ongoing process post-COVID, that 72,000 just is not realistic. Our true number in 2023, 24 might be 90,000, and we'll have to adjust to that moving forward. But again, trying to be as conservative on paper and doing everything that we can to stick to that and gathering data points along the way. I mean, we know budgeting is an inexact science, but we feel like we're more prepared this year to actually hit our numbers than we have over the course of the past 2 years. There was another question. Oh, okay. So Employee Retention Credit Program was kind of a federal government program. It succeeded, if you will, or is the next phase of COVID business money, stimulus money. And it rewarded organizations for keeping their people employed. And we applied for this program. I actually found out that we got the money Erev Rosh Hashanah, or Erev Yom Kippur, or Kol Nidre. So that was a nice way to kick off the Jewish New Year. And the total funding that we will be receiving through the end of the summer, we have 1 or 2 more checks left, will be $227,000. So again, that backstopped us for this year. It allowed us to have deliberate and thoughtful conversations as opposed to going into break glass in case of emergency mode, which is why we were able to have a very thoughtful budget process. The rest of the funds will be folded into our reserves at the foundation. General services and administration. It's the account line of doing business, copiers, and that sort of thing, and the support staff. Which Karen wants to go first?
It says total personnel costs are going down a whole bunch. How many people are we getting rid of?
So this is we're doing this in a couple of routes. We are making operational changes to the religious school that will have an impact on the amount of hours we are paying out for teachers. We did cut one salary, and we're still going to be able to provide the function that person provided in a different way. And we have an employee who is going from full-time to half-time. Our intention throughout this entire process was, we know we need to get this under control, but to make sure we are not touching or having a significant impact on the product. The majority of the things that we are going to be implementing, most of the community will never see. Or it's things like asking all of you to go paperless. It has a huge impact. As opposed to, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z program that people love. Like, we're not going that route. We're just figuring out how can we be a smarter business in 2023 post-COVID based on everything that we know now. Oh, Marcy, sorry.
I wanted to ask about the facility security fee that we received $85,000. Where did that come from? Because it's an income. It's under income.
Yeah.
So
part of dues.
oh, that's part of the dues. Oh, I didn't know what it was. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any further questions?
I'm just curious about, this 5,500 program expenses. What made it go from 30,000 to 78,000, and then we're going back to 30? So what happened?
So let me look at the budget. So 4,600 and 5,500 tie. And what I mean by that is Jewish Columbus has a security grant, a one-to-one, it's pretty close to one-to-one security grant or security reimbursement. So every dollar that we spend, they reimburse us. So the income for that is in 4,600, and our security expenses are in 5,500. This is really the first year post-COVID where we've been really, really open. And, without having known that last spring, what this year was going to be like, we guessed based on our, security or COVID level security spending, 30,000, and since we've been fully open, we'd be ramped back up to having security on a very, very frequent basis. And look, as for next year going back down, again, it's just us trying to be conservative, not trying to take the approach of, we'll put down a number on paper and see what happens. We're fairly confident in that 30,000 as a starting point, and we'll see what happens from there.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody in the committee that served. Can I get a motion to pass the budget? Steve, can I have a second, please? Paul Rothman. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the budget passes. We continue on for another year. Our country just went through that, sort of. Again, I think the Finance Committee, these are all great questions, and I will say that I've set some direction with coming out of 2 years of not knowing what we're going to do financially and what things are going to cost and how things are. Made it a priority to Josh and Neela and to Bobby to get down a good forecast. That's just sort of my business sense of what I've had to really go for and have a goal to shoot from. And we'll know more as we continue, but we have some really good people that really take a look at this multiple times a month. I mean, multiple times a month. So thank you again for everything. I guess it really comes down to, well, let's see our timing here real quick. See how long-winded? Oh, okay. People know at the board I'm pretty good at getting us out, all right? And on timing manner, respecting people's time. I think I said in the very beginning, great stuff about our temple, and it's the truth, and how do you build on things? And in my daily life, I work with employees and others as we do a great job. How can we get better? How can we strive? And I think that sort of goes back to our religion and the foundation of who we are as Jews. How can we better ourselves? How can we look for things? How can we do things differently? And when I took over the board, I I looked back and said, how many board meetings through House of Worship? I've served on multiple boards outside of this House of Worship, but doing House of Worship through my past executive director job, being a Temple member, being a Temple member here, it was a lot of board meetings, Temple-wise, and being a professional and also being the volunteer. And what I've learned, and sort of answer Steve's question that he had noted before, is you have to respect people's time these days. You have to engage and make them want to come back, because there's far and few between. My generation, which is the Xers, we don't volunteer very well. We don't give up our time very well. And it's hard to get people to volunteer and just to serve. So I had to think of ways to get creative on the board to bring in people who will stay, people who feel good when they leave the doors. It's the most important thing that I ever learned as sitting on boards, and even this one, is when someone leaves, they say, we got something done. That was worth my time. And I hope that this past year I've done that with the board, which has really trickled, I hope, into everything you saw here. My goal of the board was to discuss things that are very pertinent for the Temple to move forward and to have buy-in and have talk and dialogue. And really set a board meeting on areas that board members will have to work on. They can't just not attend anymore. And I see some of the board members shaking their head. You had to do something. But to do something, I made it realistic, that give me an hour or two or more of the board and we do it, we're going to do great things. And I'm proud of the board because they bought into it, and they've done some great stuff that Bobby sort of went through what we've been doing on the board levels with all the different levels of those committees. But for myself, I really wanted us to discuss the important matters of the Temple, to inform and really do our job as board leaders and lay leaders to think. So a lot of stuff you see with the budgeting and the building and religious school and shul cloud, those are all ways and all discussed within our board. It wasn't done behind closed doors. And I learned a lot about that too, is to get the board to be productive, to have buy-in, we need to all be together and to do stuff. So everything that Bobby went through, everything the rabbi went through, we've discussed that. I hope we did, right, Jonathan? Okay, thank you. Jonathan, he's always my sounding board on that, or Michael, but on that part. But so my goal last year was to break the board up, discuss the building needs, to discuss membership, how we can be different and collect information, how the religious school can re-engage after a traumatic time for everybody, especially our youth and our teachers, and education, to fundraising. And then lastly, we worked on some HR stuff, really looking at where do we need to be to support the Temple and do it the right way and support that. And as you saw the report, Bobby really gave my report, the building. We're going back to all the hard work done, and I was on those committees to look at what needs to be repaired, how much it's going to cost, and sort of we did some stuff and other stuff got, down, but our building's maturing just like our congregation, and we have some concerns that we have to address. Our fundraising, in order to really, and this one was sort of difficult. Founding members and members have been here a long time. I really thought about this a lot, is how do we keep the culture of Temple Beth Shalom, who we are, where we've created in the foundation, to not let giving and fundraising identify who we are within the congregation. And I learned a lot that from Mr. Feibel over lots and lots of dialogue, that he and many others who left a congregation where that was the importance, to start a congregation where all the same people. However, we always debated back where we need money to continue what we wanted to do. And we shouldn't be ashamed to go to our congregation and ask for money and support. And we will shepherd their support with finances to bring everything that we have within our community today. So within the fundraising, we've been talking a lot about that. Even the subcommittees from the board that we've established, how do we honor and respect the people who came before us, but how do we raise money that we need to continue the great work of our community? And it comes down to giving. And before we really start looking and maturing in our things, we need to get how we handle people's money, restricted funds, unrestricted funds, how are we going to put the funds together, how do we spend it, what are the rules of giving in that, and really establish a great platform for us to go out and ask or to receive and shepherd it correctly. So we're doing that. We're also, and I'll say it last, is other ideas that we have in there. Religious school. I don't know if you have any children in religious school, but you got a survey asking, how can we make religious school be realistic to our families and to life today? And how do we adjust to that to keep the kids engaged and keep them coming to learn and be part of a community? And one thing I think I've learned over the years is, and we had the discussion, just like high holidays, do we have to be a member and do all this to have bar and bat mitzvahs? And that's the prime, and that's the most important. Yes, it'll always be important in our religion to have the b'nai mitzvah and that, but today it's so important to have the kids engage and be social and to be Jewish and to feel good. And there are many children in our congregation that don't go to the same school district. So in order to make that happen and create bonds with other ones, we have to look at that engagement, and they are doing that. That's from the board, and we're discussing that at the board on how we can do that all the way to some of the curriculum. So those are sort of the ways we're moving forward. One thing, if you've been reading my articles, this is old news because I've been talking about this for the past year in my bulletin article. I've been discussing it probably every board meeting, right, what we've done, and we've been discussing it as we move forth. We're going to continue to do that. The board's going to come up with other ideas. If you have anything that you'd like to discuss, I'm there to send, but we're really focusing in on how can we get better, not only tomorrow, next week, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I think something you can see very exciting is what we're going to do with membership. We don't know right now, but we're discussing the data we're receiving to how do we make membership into 2024, not, as the rabbi mentioned earlier, of the 1940s and 1950s. And that's a lot of work, a lot of opinions in that. So I'm very proud of us having those discussions on that level, the board members taking responsibility, having subcommittees of new members, old members, newer members come together to discuss it, to bring the information back to us. We discuss it, and then we move on. So that's really an update. My goal, too, is always to let the professionals do their work. We have some great professionals here, as I mentioned before, our clergy, our musicians, our executive director, our staff, our custodians, the volunteers, but to really let them use their expertise, and I'm there to support them. And they, with all the stuff we do, from the high holidays to everything we do every day here and support, they do a wonderful job. And the only way we can continue is to support it with hours and also money. One thing that you probably saw was my article from last month. If you haven't seen it, we have a printed copy here. You can go to the e-window. It's on our website. Again, over 20 years working in the field and volunteering in the field of house of worship, especially temples. I think fundraising sort of needs to change a little bit of what we have. People always ask me, well, I give, where does it go? It goes to that big hole, right? Where we have checks that we write within the temple. Well, yes, but it's done for good stuff. But I think what's so important is to find people who have a passion for certain items at the temple that they're proud about, that they connect to, and there's many of them, and to go to ask to support that. It's nothing new. We've probably been doing that for a long time. But really to focus in now on people who want to make a difference with our budget, where we're able to take away daily stuff, where we can have that and not have the pressure of having large fundraisers, but to use items that people will say to their children, we provided that. We did that for the temple. We did that for the whole community. So that's where you'll see Bobby spearheading along with me, Julie doing the bulk of the work of that, and Julie's done a great job of, I don't know how many years she's served, but she's passionate about it and she's smart. Where we're going to be looking, if you see a sample of a list of stuff that we have for high holidays. If you love the music, you don't have to support all of it. Find a couple families, do something. But it's a way to show that we're using your will, your finances for what you want and the passion you have for our temple and mirroring it up. So that's where you're going to see the day-to-day fundraising. And I hope that people can support it and it works. And lastly, I want to thank also regarding that is the members who go above and beyond in their commitment, annual commitment to the temple. I think, Julie, we initiated that probably 8-10 years ago on the board, and Steve Herman and Michael Rothstein, who get all the credit along with Julie to make this happen, is we have almost 70 households that go above and beyond what we ask. You know, when we bill out, that's sort of the threshold of what we need to balance the budget. But there are many families that can't give that, which is okay, because that's who we are as Temple Beth Shalom. But in order to provide the services in that, we need people to give more. So our above and beyond, I thank you very much. It's given a lot of support to our old temple to do the things that we have to do. And I want to thank them for that. And lastly, she's maybe watching, I want to thank my wife and my kids. If you don't know, my family's been through a very difficult year with a very serious illness with my oldest child. And my daughter is still battling with her serious illness, and our family is battling with her, and our congregation's prayers have been with her. So as we go through that, I want to thank my family. Taking on a congregation, the responsibility of a congregation, is a big responsibility, and I think there's past presidents in here, and people have done it. But without the support of the board members, the volunteers, and everything else, I would have made it through this year. And I want to thank them lastly, and my wife the most. So I'll leave this open if you want any questions to me or comments. I'm going to have it here, but after this closing, we have some nosh down in our mezzanine. And if you haven't seen the mezzanine, please come because it's gorgeous. The refurbishment from the committee that did that with the great gift of the Feibel family and the Cohen family, that it's beautiful. So thank you for them to purchase that. So anybody else? Yes.
President to be DT, TBD, is that?
That is the president-elect.
Well, who is?
Stepped up to be president-elect.
That's what I was wondering.
I'm not worried about it. Well, I still am. This is still my term. I've served one term. I have another. I'm sorry, I have one more year. It's a 2-year term. I have one more year. So that is president-elect. So if you know some people on the board that could be president, please twist their arm a little. No, it's not twisting anymore. I'm actually very proud of the board because we have people step up. It's not twisting anymore. It's the fear of becoming president. And let me tell you, it's not that bad. It could be, but we have a great congregation. We really do. So, and we're in a great spot, positive spot. The ship is sailing straight ahead, full speed of that. So that's for president-elect. Any other questions? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? Marvin, second. Steve Grossman, all in favor? And I'm just going to leave it at that and close the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Temple members. Thank you, everybody else. Let's enjoy the next year that we have in front of us, and God bless everybody. Thank you.